Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting adventure with Pretty Gritty Tours. I'm your guide this evening, Chris. And as always, we're diving into the most exciting, most unknown questions for Washington State and the greater Pacific Northwest so that you can be armed with all the knowledge you need to live your life more successfully. Tonight's question, of course, is one that is asked perhaps always, forever and always. And it is, did Tacoma have the world's largest meat, the biggest hot dog? Were we in possession of it? I can feel the burning curiosity across the plains. So why don't we dive right in, my friends? Now, if you don't know this already, Tacoma is something of a hot dog town, has been for some time. Shout out to my friends over at the Red Hot, the finest hot dog bar here in the Tacoma area. And they are not the first to lead the fray into the finest sausages. But the concept of Tacoma as a hot dog town has been around for a while. This one here, you can kind of see in the background here, they've got the try a lunch hot dog. Like, this was a thing. And it used to be kind of the most celebrated part of the Tacoma area. As a blue collar town, hot dog lunches became hot. That was the thing that everybody was looking forward to. This particular one is from a photograph in 1948 where the Permanente Metal Mill hosted a company-wide lunch for their first anniversary, and hot dogs were on the menu. And hands down, the most confusing part of this entire thing for me is what are going on with these hot dogs? They look like they have been split down the middle and then laid across a bun that is open, like half of a sandwich with a divided hot dog. It is utterly confusing to me, but I'm not here to judge. What you need to know is that the hot dog phenomena was sweeping through the Pacific Northwest, and Tacoma was its epicenter. This particular shot is one of my most favorites. This is from August 1925, where a guy named Edwin Dewey Nichols, who had been working in the lumber industry in the area, threw himself a retirement party, essentially, and invited over 500 people. And what they did is they just took a log, cut it down the middle, not dissimilar to how that hot dog was in the last shot, and then put on a roast, a weenie roast. And it had corn, it had hot dogs, it had, I'm trying to think how many buckets. They described it in pails of butter, mountains of hot dog buns, and then 100 feet of fire log to make this whole thing go. Needless to say, throwing yourself a retirement party and inviting 500 people, deluxe move. I hope to do that someday, so put it on the calendar. It's been noted. Secondly, feeding 500 people sounds like one of the most intimidating and impossible things that I can imagine as an individual, especially in 1925. But turns out hot dogs are the way to go. And if you have 100 feet of wood as your barbecue pit, nailing it. Now, there have been contenders in the region. The Blue Jay Inn up by Seattle used to claim that they had the world's largest hot dog for just 10 cents, but theirs was 12 inches long. And while, yes, that's different, doesn't necessarily mean that it's the longest. And I have to specify, if we're looking at longest or largest hot dog, you got to be very specific, right? You can't just say the biggest dog, because that can actually get you confused on a few ways. This, for me, is one of the most deluxe articles that I encountered when I was first looking into who has the largest hot dog. And yeah, that is one of the many things that I research in my time. So maybe you can take your judgment and get on out. But don't forget to smash that like and subscribe before you leave. The article that I found, this is from the 80s. And they're not talking about hot dogs at all. At least I don't think so. Mr. Scott Ostler here is talking about the hot dog, like who's the man? But he goes through all these guys in the beginning, right? Magic Johnson, Reggie Jackson, Hulk Hogan, and he lands on Arnold Palmer being the biggest hot dog in the industry. And it's pretty wild if you read this. Going through here, he's talking about him being the largest. Arnie's not a pants dropper. He's a pants hitter. Oh, pants hitcher. Oh, God. I will send this to whoever wants. The Scott Ostler article about the largest hot dog really goes into his love of Arnold Palmer being the largest dog in the industry. And knowing what we know now, today in this life, this is really aged exquisitely, like a fine wine. But I don't want to get us distracted on Arnold Palmer being a big old dog. We got to talk some specifics really quick. So right now, to the best of my knowledge, the last time the world's longest hot dog was attempted was in 2001, Guinness World Record in Japan. It was 669 feet. You're telling me that they made the world's longest hot dog at 669 feet, and that wasn't intentional? Get out of town. I would. I'm not buying those goods. You take them right back. But also, I think it's important to consider girth when you're talking about the largest meat in the area here. This one right here with Jabby Jablonski is really, that's an impressive member right there. This is, I'm trying to remember here, 44.3 pounds of meat swinging around right there. And that was a contender for largest hot dog. Of course, that goes to the Juicy's Outlaw Grill with a 100-foot long section there. And this one in particular is a always open for resale hot dog. It's 125.5 pounds of meat stuffed in between some buns there with all the accoutrement. That's an enormous hot dog. No matter what we're talking about here, that's just too damn much. But they put it on a 100-foot long grill and they cook these suckers up all day long so that you could just at any time walk in and be like, you know what I want? The world's biggest dog. And I'm not talking about Arnold Palmer. When you go back through the records of Tacoma, though, there are so many references to hot dogs being an important part to the Tacoma culture. This is talking to a sports guy in the area about how many hot dogs are actually sold nationally and that Tacoma is leading the charge here. And dogs are a big thing for us. So we've set the stage. But really, I want to introduce you to one of the most fascinating twists of the Tacoma story, in which I'm pretty confident for its time, we did in fact have the largest dog. So, my friends, let's dive in, shall we? Cheers to you. Gotta limber up before we do this. The largest meat in the region undoubtedly came from Jack's Lunch, which was listed as home of the world's largest hot dog. And we have receipts. This was run by a guy named Jack Bolton. He operated Jack's Lunch, just him and his wife. They lived on the top floor and then ran it as a kitchenette, luncheonette, diner. And it today is the building that would be Teaching Toys on Proctor. It's gone through some reiterations. At one point, it was the steak and obviously had ice cream as well as a variety of other foods, but it was most famous, I believe, as Jack's Lunch. Here's the period where it got really shady. They had a pinball machine, and as we all know, pinball is the essence of evil in the area. But Jack's was trying to innovate in the 1930s at a time where it was incredibly difficult just to survive. The nation was going through the Great Depression. Tacoma was not immune to that economic fallout. And a lot of these blue-collar guys who had been living paycheck to paycheck and already fighting for labor and union rights in the Tacoma area were struggling hard. And Jack wanted to do something to provide opportunities for them, but also make himself some money. So he and his wife come up with the Jack's dog, the largest hot dog that they knew of in the nation at the time. And we're going to go ahead and extrapolate that means the world, because nobody was sucking down dogs like the US was in the 1930s. That's all on us. The longest dog is more than just marketing to me at this point, because when you look into it, Jack and his wife Ethel put ideas down to paper and they drafted specifications for what they reasonably thought they could get away with as the largest dog and sell it for a dime. That was the thing, the dog for a dime. and you would get the largest hot dog, a meal fit for a hard-working man, but it would only ever cost you 10 cents. They were like pioneering the Arizona iced tea model at the time, and they wanted to see just how big they could get that sucker without breaking your bank. So they had to draft the design for a new hot dog and then take it to a specialist. Only one person in town was capable of handling that much meat, and it was the Karsten meatpacking plant. Thomas Karsten, the founder of Karsten's Packing, ran this cattle yard, slaughterhouse, and meatpacking facility down on the Tacoma Tide Flats. And there was a period where Karsten's meatpacking was one of, if not the largest meatpacking facilities in the United States, right here in our very own Tacoma. This particular picture on the Tide Flats was taken from 1909, and it goes into great detail about the meatpacking facility and what made it so state of the art. And Karsten, he was on board with this whole thing. He had already been getting into the butcher shop industry in Tacoma just beyond packing and wanted something to set his name aside. Just sending whole sides of beeves out into the streets wasn't doing it. So he relied on his expert workforce to craft the largest hot dog in the area. And Jack, Ethel, Karsten, they all got together. They had a specified plan and like schematics for how big this dog needed to be. And I cannot find it. I'm sure that it exists somewhere. It's probably in some deep archive of the Library of Congress because I believe that he had it trademarked. And if I could get my hands on that, that would be a good day for me because I'd like to know just what Jack had. Length, girth, what were we talking about as far as this large meat in the Tacoma area? If it had to go to the Karsten's meatpacking plant to be custom formed, we know that it was really knocking something out of the park here. Jack, for some time, ran the largest hot dog in the Tacoma area. And while we don't know the specifics of it, we know that it inspired other grocers in the area to follow suit. And so the largest hot dog was kind of a popular scheme that people would do in Tacoma for a while, where they would put a huge dog out on display in a store. And if you could guess the weight or get closest to it, you would win more meat. The Karsten's high-grade boneless, fully cooked Fiesta ham, to be specific. Karsten took the plan of the largest hot dog and then swole it up even more so that he could use it as a marketing scheme later on. Jack's Lunch, though, had the world's largest hot dog listed on their marketing for some time. But if you're going to have a dog that big, that much meat, you need the right buns to put it in. And so they had to go to a custom bun production line. They relied on Usher's famous buns to get those dogs in there. And Usher's was not Tacoma. Usher's is located out in Sumner. And if your dog's that big, sometimes you got to go afield to figure out some place to put it. But Usher's famous custom buns end up being the only housing for Jack's famous dog. The world's largest hot dog can only go into Usher's buns, fresh baked daily out of Sumner. But you don't want to raw dog that thing. You got to have some sauce for it, my friends. Jesus. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it through today. It's been a long day. I'd like to introduce you to Nally Valley, my friends, because we've got Jack's dog, we've got Usher's buns, but if you're going to make this the most delicious and enjoyable experience, you need some custom sauce for it. And the Nally Valley Company, Nally's potato chips, pickles, sauces, also based here in Tacoma, rises to the occasion. Their specific hot dog relish, ketchup, and relish for hot dogs and burgers, I think is what they're using it for at the same time, ends up going into a specific category where they are the only things that can be used, right? So pure food products from Nally's are exclusively used on the world's largest hot dog. And it's a really good question. How long? You know, we're going to get to this, my friends. I don't want to leave you hanging. Oh boy. So we have to extrapolate some data really quick here. If we're looking at how long was Jack's famous dog, we got to work our way backwards from what we do know. Now, skinless wieners were very popular in the area here. They were the world's largest hot dog prize. These were for 41 cents, but if you got the right weight on the world's largest hot dog in any of the grocery stores in Tacoma, you could win a package of skinless wieners. Those came in at just about 12 inches and roughly a pound sometimes, is what I've seen on these whole things. Okay. So we know that the world's largest hot dog was longer than that. The other thing we know is that it was the baseline for what became the yard-long dog for 97 cents sold at B&I. Now, there was a long time where the hot dog counter at B&I, which I hope you're familiar with, here in Tacoma, was selling the yard-long dog, where they didn't rely on Usher. They just got a 3-foot-long, a yard-long dog, and then tacked on 3 buns to it. Now, we know that the buns were getting longer, but the dog was going too far to accommodate any bakery in the area. Also worth noting that the hot dog was a huge sell to the area, and they relied on some wild marketing gimmicks at B&I, including bringing in actor Duncan Ronaldo, who some of you may know as the Cisco Kid. He was like the hot ticket at the time. And when B&I booked the Cisco Kid to come in for autographs and photo appearances, everybody was lined up around the block to get a photograph with him. And there you could also buy cowboy boots, fake revolvers, cowboy hats, and the iconic 97-cent yard-long dog. Except for apparently this guy. I don't know why he had to wait in the back there, but that's on him. The hot dogs that we have the best examples of were somewhere between 14 to 15 inches and probably a pound to a pound and a half of meat. When you're looking at the Foodland text from the area, the world's largest hot dogs were now being listed as 6 feet long, and that was for promotional material. So my best guess is that Jack had about 15 inches of premium meat on those white buns with all that Nally sauce on there. And that, for a dime in the 1930s, that's unprecedented. And to the best of my knowledge, nobody else was slinging meat quite like that in the area. Was the world's largest dog in Tacoma in the 1930s? I'm going to go ahead and say yes, absolutely. And if not then we have a runner-up. Back in the 1970s, Stan Nacarado, who was running the Tacoma Twins, the baseball team in the area here, he decided that it would be a great idea to have a publicity stunt where they airlifted a 400-foot hot dog with a helicopter down to the Tacoma Dome and then let all the fans eat it. I have not been able to find a picture of that happening, but it gets referenced many times. And so we know that at some point they had put serious pen to paper to get a 400-foot hot dog airlifted into the Tacoma Dome in the 1970s. So that could have also been, especially at the time, a contender for the world's biggest dog. If not then, well, we're going to go into a wipeout by numbers. I'd like to introduce you really quick to Gretchen Millie, or as she was belovedly known at University of Puget Sound, the hot dog queen. Mrs. Ray here, Mrs. Ray Millie held up some hot dogs here, but this is just a little bit. In the 1970s, she was brought in to manage all of the team being fed at University of Puget Sound. So like during tournaments, she would make sure that all of the fans would have something to eat. And she was noted in 1972 for having provided 11,000 hot dogs, 900 dozen buns, and 130 pounds of coffee for a 4-day tournament at University of Puget Sound. Needless to say, from the earliest days, hot dogs have been important to the great city of Tacoma, and the amount of meat that's required for it has gone from minimal to extreme, where the city had to draft an actual schematic for a giant dog and then send the designs over to a baker in Sumner to make it done. Basically, what I'm trying to say is from slinging dogs to packing meat to filling buns, really, when you're looking at meat, Tacoma can't be beat, which I think is an excellent lead to the fact that hopefully soon we can discuss another Pacific Northwest topic of, I think the title should be Does It Squirt? The Gooey Duck Story in Washington State. That's a lot to unpack, my friends. So, with that, I appreciate you tuning in on this random Sunday evening to answer the question that I'm sure everybody needed to know. Did Tacoma once have the world's largest hot dog? Probably. That's my official answer. 100% most likely. Oh boy. Challenge has been issued, Red Hot. I'd like to see the world's largest dog marqueed on the city again. And we know it only has to be greater than 669 feet. I think we all need a drink, my friends. Have a wonderful night.